and welcome to Mindscapes, a series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, visions, and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today has been a distinguished bureaucrat. He's held many positions of service and commitment where he has been a crusader for his country. I'm delighted to welcome the Central Vigilance Commissioner, N Vittal. Mr. Vittal, you have been in the news recently, in a sense combining your experience perhaps with the Telecom Commission and your role as the CVC, and putting these names of corrupt officials on the internet. And I think sort of people have been complaining and feeling that perhaps justice isn't being done, and you know, there has been this furore that they haven't yet been proved guilty, and merely on the suspicion of guilt they're being branded.
Under our law, everybody is innocent till proved guilty. In our system, when a case goes to a court, in a criminal case, everybody knows who is an accused. He is innocent till proved guilty, but there is no secrecy about who is the accused and what is the offense. Now, all that I have done is to extend that principle. You are innocent till proved guilty, but if you are a charged officer against whom there is an inquiry pending, then there is no harm to your reputation in your name getting publicized. This has been done with a lot of larger public interest in view. In fact, this putting of the names on the website probably is the first occasion of using information technology to fight corruption, that too in a developing country.
But given the very low conviction rate on whether it is corruption or allegations that you've mentioned, if someone is charged with a murder case, there is a very, very high rate of acquittal. And just because it, you know, sort of justice isn't served in a sense for all those people who are acquitted, and we might feel or think that they are guilty, but they're acquitted in the eyes of the law, isn't this in some ways compromising honest people? It enables someone to stand up and make an allegation and to get a name included in the list.
Two corrections are in order. First, all these names which are there, they are not names on which only allegations have been made. In fact, the concerned departments have collected the information, examined them at their level as disciplinary authorities, and then referred to the Central Vigilance Commission for its advice. We give advice in two stages. First, looking to the facts, we say this is a serious case where we can go to a court of law where the proof needed is beyond reasonable doubt, and so you can go for prosecution. Or there may be cases where the standard of proof needed is not strong enough to go to a court of law, but strong enough for a departmental action. Normally people at large, they only know about cases in the court of law, and as you very rightly said, the conviction rate in India is very low. It is as low in criminal cases as 6%. But as Central Vigilance Commissioner, my jurisdiction is about public servants of the Government of India and its organizations and public sector enterprises, and there is another route available to me, the route of the departmental action, in which we can focus attention and see that wherever it is justified, quick punishment is awarded. In fact, the putting of the names on the website revealed a number of things. First, there is enormous delay in the departmental action. Some people said, my name is in the website, but I am not been even given charge sheet. That means the department has been slow. So I am going to use the website and the other data I have to every month remind all the departmental authorities so that this enormous delay which is today taking place is avoided. And it is this delay in the departmental action which also probably gives some justification to your anxiety that it may be honest people who are being wrongly framed and they may be losing their career. But by now focusing on the departmental action and expediting them, I have fixed a target of 6 months as a time for action. Then at least if they are honest, they will come in the clear within 6 months ideally. Today it's still not, we are not there, it's taking years. And on the other hand, if there are corrupt people, if the action goes on for a long time, they have a very convenient existence. And what is more, this was another new discovery from the website, some of these people are in sensitive positions. Now normally, when a person is facing a departmental action or more seriously even prosecution, he should not be put in sensitive posts. But this is happening maybe due to a number of other factors. So this putting of the names of the website has now brought the sunshine into one of the murky areas of administration where corruption flourishes because of two things: secrecy and delay. Now secrecy is eliminated by website, and delay also will be brought down by the follow-up action which we will be taking.
You have sort of almost with a crusader zeal come out in this battle against corruption. You have hoped that India, from being in the bottom third of the corrupt countries list, will at least move to the center within the 2 remaining years that you have in office. Yes. From the time you have spent in the job, do you feel that that is achievable still?
Yes, I think it is achievable, for the simple reason, unless you believe something can happen, it's not going to happen. Suppose I ask you, can you fly? You will say, how can we fly? Because of gravity. But then Wilbur and Orville Wright did not think so, and then you are all flying in aeroplanes today. When Mahatma Gandhi was thrown out of the first class compartment, even though he had a first class ticket, a normal person would have said, yes, that is the rule in that country. But he said one man took on the whole system, and then he came and proved in India what Satyagraha can do. So I believe it is possible, because if you ask 100 people in India, at least 95, 98 people are going to say, no, we want a less corrupt system of government, less corrupt system of administration. So there is a silent majority in this country which wants corruption to go, but then that silent majority doesn't find how that goal can be achieved. Now in the CVC, particularly after the Supreme Court judgment in the Vineet Narayan case, there is an instrument today available which ensures first that person who is pushed at CVC is there for 4 years. He is selected by a politically as a consensual process. The Prime Minister, the Home Minister and the Leader of Opposition are selecting him. He cannot take any job under the government, state or center after the tenure is over. And he is supervising a key investigative agency like CBI. He has a role to play in selection of the Director of the Enforcement Directorate. So this structure, which was not there 18 months ago, is today in position, and that also gives me the confidence.
There are obviously several elements that make a society corrupt. It is not merely a question of the moral fiber of the people, though we might like to assume that there is an innate desire, motivation, need that people will have for material gain and wealth and to acquire it if they can. There are lacunae inherent in the system that necessitate it, so that many otherwise law-abiding citizens, in order to access what they legitimately need or is their due, sort of give bribes, even if it isn't something that they believe in. Surely the task is multi-dimensional, beyond merely bringing the corrupt to book.
I will agree with you 200%. And this is how I go about my job. First, the moral temperature or the ethical temperature in any organization depends on 3 things. One, the inherent sense of values of the individual, which depends on his upbringing, religion, whatever. The second is the society sense of values. Third is the system. Now, if you look at any set of people, any population, 10% are bound to be very honest, whatever you do. 10% are bound to be crooks, whatever you do. The type where, as P.G. Wodehouse would say, they are the people who will cut their bread with a car screw. Crooked people. 80% depend on the system. Now, our system encourages corruption by 5 reasons, for 5 reasons. One is scarcity of goods and services. Second is lack of transparency. Third is red tape and delay. Fourth is legal cushions of safety we have created for the corrupt on the very healthy principle, everybody is innocent till proved guilty. So if I get a bribe of 1 crore, I can engage the best lawyer and quibble for every comma and full stop up to the Supreme Court and laugh all the way to the bank. And finally, the biradari or the tribalism. In English we talk about being thick as thieves. You don't talk about thick as honest people. Now these are the 5 reasons. And I entirely agree with you about this multidimensional aspect. So I am adopting a 3-point strategy to tackle this corruption. These 3 points are: 1, simplify the rules and procedures so that the scope of corruption is reduced. Corruption is like malaria, and you can prevent malaria by preventing the breeding of mosquitoes. So there are in our stagnant pools of procedure corruption breeding mosquitoes, you can tackle them. Second is transparency and empowering the public, and that is why I am talking about website. It's a transparency effect. And for empowering the public, with the Venkatachalaya committee which is looking into constitution, I am requesting them, can they not add one new fundamental right in the constitution today, namely that it is a fundamental right of every Indian citizen to go to any public office or government organization and get corruption-free service. And the third is effective punishment. Now, my website is one instrument for effective punishment, especially in departmental action, because I can't expedite court cases. But I am also moving for certain legal changes. For instance, the Law Commission has come with an act called, a draft act, Corrupt Public Servants Forfeiture of Property Act. And I have requested the government to enact that act, if necessary by an ordinance. This will empower the CVC to confiscate all ill-gotten wealth of corrupt people. Justice Reddy, Jeevan Reddy, who is the chairman of the Law Commission, has drafted that. Then there is already an existing act called the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act, which I have told the government that for 11.5 years it has not been implemented. That act says corrupt property can be, Benami property can be confiscated. I want powers to be given under that. And carrying on your basic point of corruption being multidimensional, it is not only the CVC, it is not only the court. Ultimately, we have to bring the youth, we have to bring the public, the citizens at large into this fight against corruption, for which also I have plans.
The CVC's formal role is sort of a policing role, and the ambit of interventions that are required are far wider than this.
Yeah.
You see yourself obviously in a crusading role beyond merely the defined authority, as it were, of the CVC. What are the elements that you're working on to mobilize this multi-dimensional attack, perhaps, on corruption?
Very, very good question. Because I know that corruption in Government of India and its organization is only one part of the overall vicious cycle of corruption. Now, when you talk about corrupt politicians or corrupt bureaucrats, you are talking about the demand side of corruption. What about the supply side? As you know, 34 OECD countries have formed a convention 96-97 called Anti-Bribery Convention. I have written to the supply side of corruption tackling. I have written a letter to the presidents or the presidents of FICCI, CII and ASSOCHAM, saying just as these OECD countries have formed an anti-bribery convention, can you three leading captains of industry organizations come with an anti-bribery convention? No reply from them. Second, I took up with the youth minister, youth affairs minister, if you can have national cadet corps, now why not you have a national vigilance corps, so that at least at the colleges you organize anti-corruption clubs and then mobilize the youth to be alert and check corrupt practices. You are going to say how it is going to be checked, and what's the guarantee they themselves will not become corrupt. Now here I want to balance the youth with the experience of retired people. Yesterday I was in Mumbai. Now in Mumbai the senior citizens have formed a group called Dignity. So such people, there are retired people whose NGOs can be brought together with the youth, but then bringing them, what will they do?
Right.
I have already issued an order, which I am going to further modify, that we must trap corrupt people. So if a citizen goes to an office and money is demanded, he has the option of giving, falling a prey and giving the bribe. Alternately, if you want to resist, then he can go to the chief vigilance officers. I have got 589 vigilance officers in all the departments. So they can go to them and arrange for a trap. And once the trap is done, those papers, you don't have to go to the court, because there it will take 20 years and no decision will come. But the departmental authorities can engage retired people, pay them a lump sum. In 2 months the inquiry must be completed. At the end of the inquiry, if the offence is proved, then that corrupt person must be dismissed. If we do this systematically, imagine a countervailing force in the whole society throughout the country. Every office, every public servant will be under watch by the youth as well as the experienced NGOs. This is what I visualize.
I sense a sort of a sense of despair, or shall I say frustration, at the pace of the judicial process in complementing your crusade. The Vineet Narayan case was a decisive intervention. The Supreme Court judgment in the JMM case on the ability, shall we say, or the possibility that a member of Parliament can be accused and charged with giving bribes but not of receiving bribes.
Yeah.
Where does that leave the apex of the pyramid in India?
You see, the judiciary in our country is independent, and perhaps you may be aware, the Contempt of Court Act says that truth is no defense. If a judge thinks that you have committed contempt of court, then even if what you have said is true, it is no defense against the court. You can be sent to jail. So we have to be extremely careful about making any comment about the judiciary. Therefore, while I am calling on the Chief Justice of India and other Chief Justices, bringing to their notice the details of the cases pending with them so that they can expedite the cases, I am trying to look at other options that are available which can expedite the process. Because as I told you in the beginning, when you have to take action against the corrupt people, you have two options available. One is the court case where the proof required is much higher, and the other is the departmental action. And I also believe prevention is better than cure. So one of the things I have been emphasizing the last 18 months is preventive measures, change the system, like for example computerization in banks, a total ban on post-tender negotiations. At the same time, I am also encouraging the honest people by, there was a culture of blackmail in our government of India and all government public sector organizations because of these anonymous, pseudonymous petitions. I have put a total ban on taking any action on any anonymous pseudonymous petition. This sends a signal to the honest people that they can take decisions. I have also encouraged junior people to complain against their seniors. I have gone to the Law Commission and suggested that as in Britain, United States, Australia, let us have a Whistleblowers Act so that the honest person who exposes corruption is not himself harassed and is legally protected. So these are the number of other measures that are being taken.
You have also written about and talked about sort of half perhaps in jest, but how the black money in circulation in the country supports such a large number of people and the employment of so many people.
Very good question.
And so that the vested interests that promote, support and encourage this are so strong and substantial. So it isn't merely a question of a corrupt official taking money and putting it in his pocket, but there's a whole economy that sustains it.
Right.
And how are we going to begin to break that open?
Very good question. In fact, first, government should stop having policies which pamper the non-taxpayer and the tax evader and harass the honest taxpayer. You remember a couple of years back we had the VDIS, Voluntary Disclosure of Income Scheme. What was that scheme? If an honest man was there, he was paying 40% income tax, he had no money. If a dishonest fellow had kept black money, government said you expose the black money 30% and you are off. If this country rewards the tax evader and the black money generator, how can you stop the growth of black money? I would therefore say black money is the oxygen for corruption, corruption is the oxygen for black money. Now this vicious cycle has to be broken. So you have to look at various things. First, government policies that encourage black money. Simple thing, for example, income tax refunds. There is a general complaint that nobody gets a refund unless some money is paid. A suggestion I am now just making to the finance minister and the finance ministry, that as in some other countries, why don't you give a choice to the assessee that if you want, you can get your tax refund, income tax, or that amount of refund can be taken as a credit for your next year's tax. Now, if this credit concept is accepted, the scope for generation of black money, at least in that particular area, can be stopped. So we have to look at each source of black money, and there should be a comprehensive eclectic campaign against black money in this country. And that will bring down corruption, because people always talk about, you are talking about bureaucratic corruption, what about political corruption? Now political corruption is not under my purview. But if you are able to attack black money, automatically you will check the corruption in other sectors also.
You've also written about how the administrative structure in India has changed, encouraging corruption, that it was the politician who was meant to frame policy and it was the bureaucrat who was meant to implement it. But actually it's now become the other way around.
So what do we do? Number of things can be done. First, the very act of website has had a deterrent effect, because after all, the politician cannot make the system operate to his financial advantage unless there is a colluding bureaucrat. Now if the colluding bureaucrat knows that he will be literally caught in the web, to that extent there's a small disincentive to that process. Second, there are plum posts where scope for corruption is high. I would suggest, just as on the basis of the Supreme Court judgment, the filling of the post of the Director CBI and the senior post there, or the Director Enforcement Directorate and senior post in the Enforcement Directorate, are now subject to a sort of a neutral process, an objective process of the CBC committee recommending. Probably you should identify right across the spectrum of government organizations sensitive posts and bring in transparent procedures by which selection will be based on merit and competence. And secondly, there will be a certain security of tenure, so that this power of transfer at whims and fancies, which makes the bureaucracy develop, shall we say, rubber-like flexible backbones, can be avoided.
We've had a somewhat sort of idealistic notion that if you have democracy, that ultimately that is what is going to sort of lead to equity and the cleaning up of the system. And yet we see that very democratic process, electing people who have been charged with criminal offenses, or even have been convicted in the lower courts in some ways, pretty much in the spirit of what you were saying about putting people's names on the web. If there is such high levels of public acceptance, tolerance of the imperfections, if we might sort of politely call corruption that, how do you begin to bring about this wellspring of this swell, this wave of resistance that might sweep aside this sort of evil?
No, I think, with all due respect, I think Mr. Seshan, when he was the Chief Election Commissioner, brought about certain amount of discipline, a code of conduct which didn't have a legal basis, still he was able to implement. And just 2 days ago, one of our senior journalists spoke to me about this horse trading that was going on in Rajya Sabha elections. I told him that I was not the concerned authority, he should take it up with my colleague Mr. Gill, Chief Election Commissioner. Apparently he took up the matter, and you saw that Mr. Gill gave instructions to the Finance Ministry to see what can be done to check horse trading. And also, I think we should sharpen our legal restrictions about criminals contesting the elections. Take, for example, a case of a politician who has been convicted, but that person has been convicted for 1 year. Our rule says, if you are only convicted for 2 years, you are debarred for 6 years. Now, cannot somebody look into this and say that once you are convicted, even for 1 year, it is as good as a disability. Not that you can say, oh, I have been convicted only for 1 year in the court of law for corruption, but still I can contest the elections because the rule is 2 years.
Prior to your appointment as the Central Vigilance Commissioner, you've held several distinguished posts, and including the chairpersonship of the Telecom Commission. What were your sort of your guiding passions as a bureaucrat? Was it your sort of ability that when you were in telecom that became the passion? Now that you're looking at vigilance, that has become your passion. How does one move from these different passions?
You see, in fact, I've written a book called The Red Tape Guerrilla, in which I have spelled out my philosophy. People always say that in the IAS, you are here today, gone tomorrow. But then I say, in IAS, you should be like the cricketer in the one-day cricket. You see, when you go to bat, you don't know whether you're going to score a century or you're going to be out and given wrong LBW sometime. So you have to score from every ball. So first thing is you don't know how long you are in a job. Second is, I give the example of like the instant coffee, the instant effectiveness. Now, an IAS officer has to be instantly effective. So, when being in the IAS, and I have now with my 40th year in public service, I know that when I go to any job, I don't know how long I'm going to be there. So I must be effective from day one, and as you say, every day I must be able to do something. And so when I became telecom chairman, my idea was our technical experts had said by the year 2000, the waiting period for getting a new telephone in India will not exceed 2 years. I said, why not 2 days? Then once you say that, it's easy to raise a question, like my saying today, why not eliminate corruption or bring down corruption? Then the next thing is, how? So here I am following Michelangelo Buonarotti. Michelangelo was asked, how do you make a beautiful statue out of a marble which has no shape? He says, I have the statue in my mind, I go on removing from the marble whatever is not part of the statue, and the statue is there. So any job I take, I decide what the objective is and what should be done, and to go on looking at those, and automatically the statue has to come.
What is the statue or the job, or the statue that you would like to build? What is the job that you would really like to do beyond more than what you were given? What would be your sort of your own goal, your own ambition that drives you?
Now, I would like to see my country, I mean, everywhere I'm promoting these two slogans. India must become an economic superpower, and this century must be the Indian century. And I think we Indians are capable of doing it. And fortunately, I have been able to play some role in the growth of the software industry, electronics, and also in telecom, and now in vigilance. So I have enjoyed wherever I have gone, and I think people think I have made some contribution at least.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vittal.
Well,
It has been a great pleasure.
Thank you.